This is exhilarating. Get excited.
So I've done a video where I have sliced things in half with an actual, like, machete katana. We sliced bottles, we sliced ballistics gel. We did a lot of different stuff, and it was awesome. It was a fun time. I actually remember slicing through the bottles and almost cutting through them all in one slice, just right across all of them. But yeah, anyway, I don't know. So anywho, this video is called I Built a Paper Katana, and this was submitted a while ago. This was 10 days ago. This was submitted a while ago on one of our streams. And Mike Shake, I Built a Paper Katana. Let's go ahead and let's check this out. I don't want to dilly-dally anymore, so yeah. Let's get this going. Here we go.
Just play it.
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
Can you turn paper into an actual sword?
Yeah.
Have you ever cut yourself with paper? Well, it hurts.
A few times.
Much more than steel cuts. And one of the reasons it hurts so much is that the edge of a paper sheet, when zoomed in, isn't truly smooth. It's a row of tiny, sharp cellulose fibers that behave like microscopic saw blades, sharp enough to tear the skin. And well, I want to make a sword out of it. A paper sword with cellulose blades on the edge. There is just a problem. The reason why paper almost never cuts is because it's floppy. It just bends if you push it. But I think I know how to fix that.
Origami.
I mean, it's more like a wild guess. I have no reason to believe it could work, but I'm gonna try it. My idea is to basically copy carbon fiber. Carbon fiber doesn't always look like this. The raw material is just floppy fabric, like paper sheets. By itself, it has no rigidity at all. What makes it functional is the manufacturing process. You soak the fabric into epoxy resin, stack the layers on top of each other under pressure, and after a few hours, all the fibers are locked in place in something like this, where the fibers are what give it all the stiffness and strength, and the resin keeps all the layers together. And so, if I apply the same exact process to paper sheets, even though paper is not as tough as carbon fiber,
Yeah.
would that be enough to make a katana out of it? I guess there is one way to find out. So, the first step is to create a block of paper and resin that I can later carve into a katana. But I gotta make sure I'm picking the right materials first. Paper, for example, comes in different weights, measured in grams per square meter, or GSM. A standard printer paper sheet is around 80 GSM, and I fear that might just melt after getting soaked with resin. So, for this sword, I get a much heavier and textured paper. That's about 3 times heavier than the standard one. While when it comes to the epoxy, I found a laminating epoxy resin, which is actually specific for this kind of jobs and sticking layers together. Also, I want to make this katana as similar as possible to a real one, in terms of dimensions and geometry. So, as a reference, I'm using a real one I had laying around. I disassembled the handle.
Oh yeah, just a regular katana he's got laying around.
And then took all the measurements. With this, I can now make a wooden template that I'm gonna use to cut all the paper layers of the sword. Basically, like this. Now, to reach the thickness of the katana, which is about 7 millimeters, I need to cut 16 individual layers of paper. But that is just for the layers of the blade. I also prepared the material for the handle guard and the handle. And now, I think I got everything I need. All the layers for the blade, the handle, and the handle guard. Next, I gotta stick all these layers together. And through that, I'm gonna use epoxy resin. Took me 12 minutes to get this shot. The plan is to spread epoxy.
Hey man, respect. I give respect to like people who this one shot, this one little throwaway little transition shot right here.
And the handle guard. Next,
this one little transition throwaway shot right here.
I gotta stick all these layers together. And through that, I'm gonna use
12 minutes to get that one shot. That's dedication. Ace is on
epoxy resin. Took me 12 minutes to get this shot. The plan is to spread epoxy in between each layer and then press all the layers together using wooden boards and clamps. In any case, to avoid letting the paper stick against the wooden board, I'm using a plastic foil in between the board and the first layer of paper. I've read epoxy shouldn't stick against it, but I'm not entirely sure about that, so I guess we'll find out. Next, I gotta mix the two components of the epoxy to start the hardening reaction, and after that, I can spread it on each layer of paper. Apparently the key here is to avoid the dry areas, so I'm spreading the epoxy on both sides of the sheets, for each sheet, and after about 1 hour, the blade is ready to be clamped down. Then I basically repeated the same process for the handle guard and the handle. The fun part is that I have genuinely no idea if this is gonna actually work or just fall apart when I'm gonna remove the clamps. Alright, I'm gonna remove the clamps. The paper looks solid, but I'm still kinda worried it's just stuck against the wood. And it turns out the resin actually didn't stick to the plastic foil. And the mixture of resin and paper really looks and feels like a solid part. The handle guard turned out pretty good as well, but the thing I'm most worried about is obviously the blade. And I think it actually worked. At this point, I can cut out the shapes of the parts from the paper blocks, and to do that, first I'm sketching the outline of all the parts, and then I'm gonna cut following the lines using a bandsaw.
Yeah.
This is also gonna be the final test to see if the paper resin mix actually worked. If it didn't work, something is definitely gonna crack now. Alright, let's try it. Absolutely nothing cracked. Everything went well in this project so far, which is great and unusual, so I'm kinda expecting a catastrophic event later on.
Foreshadowing.
In any case, here's the cropped handle guard. On the cut, the composite of paper and resin kinda looks like wood, which makes sense. But compared to solid wood, this laminated paper epoxy mixture is denser, stiffer, and it should be more water stable and impact resistant. In theory. The problem is that the epoxy resin in excess on the scrap parts kinda looks and feels like glass. So I guess I'll never really know till the very end if this blade can perform almost like a real one or it will just snap. I really hope it's not gonna snap. In any case, to refine the geometry of these parts and also give an edge to the blade, I'm gonna use a belt grinder. I wouldn't want to tell you that I still haven't figured out how to collect the dust when using this thing. That's why I brought it outside and I'm basically making it snow with toxic paper.
Dude, in all honesty, just make a vacuum, just do like a vacuum port and like set it off to the side and attach it there, and then whenever you like take off the excess paper, it'll suck into the shop vac.
Epoxy.
I should have said shop vac. I'm sorry about that.
So I'm not gonna tell you. In any case, after a while I got the guard, the handle, and the blade of the Paper Katana. And even though this is just a rough version of it, I believe it turned out pretty cool. You can actually see the individual layers of paper in the blade.
That's cool.
Almost looks like Damascus paper. In any case, the blade is also very light. And I'm not sure if it's sharp, but it kinda has an edge on it. Never thought I'd cut paper with paper, but I'll take it. There's just a problem. The sword flexes. Like, way too much. At least too much to be considered a sword and not a horse stick. And even though I'm trying to make a paper sword, which doesn't make
Well, the metal of the sword does bend, especially when it like clashes with like something of like very high density.
sense by itself, I value your time a lot, and I want to at least make sure I'm trying to make it the right way. So, I want to fix it. Option 1 is to add a rigid spine to the blade, steel, aluminum or carbon fiber, and it will probably be effective but definitely not clean. Option 2 is to remake the blade from scratch, just with a thicker spine. And I'm gonna go with option 2. So, more sheets, more clamps, more weight, more bandsaw, and more snow. And here it is.
Oh,
It's
see?
still
He actually had it right.
more.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, basically he has a funnel that feeds into a shop vac.
Snow.
Great.
And here it is. It still messes with my brain to think this thing is paper. In any case, the new blade has a 12mm spine, which compared to the 7mm spine of the old one, is 5 times more rigid, and it pretty much solved the wobbling problem. Now, since the increased thickness allowed me so, I've made the handle and the blade out of just one piece. I'm sacrificing the handle guard this way, but I still believe it looks pretty cool. Also, since I had spare material from the original block of the katana, I've also made a paper knife. I've tried to keep the Japanese style, and it kinda looks like a tanto knife.
Kinda does.
You really try to see it. Now, what I have here is just a rough version of both the sword and the knife. To get to the final, good looking version of them, I gotta refine the surfaces and sharpen the edges. And to do that, I'm gonna have to use sandpaper and patience. In any case, I also never thought I'd sand paper now that I think about it. Sanding paper with sandpaper. Sanding paper I sanded with sandpaper, alright. After 1 hour, the surface of the blade is already much smoother, and it kinda feels sharp right now. Still, I've got a lot of sanding left to do, and I'm gonna skip all that for you, but while I suffer for a while, I wanna thank the brand who funded this project, and that's War Thunder. Imagine if someone threw 2,500 tanks, planes, and ships from 10 different nations together into a massive battlefield and said, go destroy each other. That's War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. And also, it's totally free. You can play it on mobile, PC, PlayStation or Xbox, whichever you've got laying around. All from the sound effects to the graphics are very realistic and accurate. And there are a lot of little details everywhere. For example, when your tank or plane gets destroyed, the game shows you exactly how it happened with an X-ray view.
Hit the ammo
You see
store.
precisely where the shell penetrated, which components were affected, and what ultimately led to the destruction of the vehicle. If you're into military history or just love epic battles, there is really no better game. Plus, with over 95 million players, there is always action. Use the links in the pinned comment or description to play War Thunder now. New players and anyone who hasn't logged in for 6 months will get a massive free bonus
War Thunder.
pack on PC and consoles, including multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive Vehicle Decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. It's for a limited time only, so go get it. Alright, I'm done sanding.
This is so cool.
I've got the final version of the Paper Katana and the final version of the Paper Knife. I kept the handle rough for a better grip and made the blade as smooth as possible to reduce the friction on the targets. I really don't know how to describe this material. It's kinda like wood, but harder. And it's even transparent if you look at the edges against the light. Also, the final thickness of the katana is about 10 mm, which is not that far from the 6 to 8 mm of real katanas. While the knife is much thinner, because I don't have the wobbling issues given the limited length.
Yeah.
And I also just realized something. While I was filming all these cinematic shots, I think I cut myself just rubbing the fingers on the blade of the sword. So,
Seems that way.
is it sharp? In any case, I believe it can get sharper. The very final step before the test is sharpening the edge with whetstones. I don't know how thin paper fibers and resin can stretch before breaking. And I'm not even sure in what percentage the resin is contributing to the sharpness compared to the paper sheets. But I still applied the same method I would use for a steel knife. And now, it's finally time to find out how this thing works. Alright, let's test this. I've got a few targets here, from very soft to tougher ones, ending up with ballistic gelatin and a ballistic dummy head. Using a super slow motion camera, we should clearly see how the blade behaves and if it actually slices the targets. And the first target is a banana. But
Banana.
I feel like I gotta manage your expectations a bit here. A few days ago, this thing was a paper roll. So if I manage to slice a banana clean with it, that's already a victory to me. Anyways, I'm gonna try first with a knife I just sharpened, to then compare its cut to the one of the paper sword. And while it sounds obvious, but you can tell a blade is sharp by what happens when you slice a target. If you pay attention to it, the bottom part of the banana barely moves, and that's
It barely moved.
thanks to the sharp edge and the thin geometry of the knife. Also, the surface of the cut is very smooth as well. Now I'm gonna try with the katana. I don't think we're gonna have quite the same result, but it's gonna be interesting. I'm sorry in advance for the embarrassing technique.
Not as smooth.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Actually though, like it wasn't too bad. From the slow motion, you can see the problem wasn't really the blade, but the fact I just hit too high. the cut itself is actually pretty clean, so I'm gonna try again. Oh yeah, that's clean!
Yeah, it's pretty clean. Not the sharpest, but I think it, once again, using plant fibers instead of metal, yeah, I mean, or steel is, yeah, that tracks. When do they started making katanas? Oh, never mind. I'll look later.
That's pretty clean actually. Alright, it's just a banana though. Let's move on to tougher targets. The next target is a pineapple. Well, a pineapple is definitely much thicker and way tougher than a banana. The last time I built a weird sword, it actually snapped hitting a pineapple. Alright, and as I did before, I'm trying with the knife first.
Move.
So I'm curious to see if the paper blade can at least split it.
Clean.
And well,
Clean.
that went way better than expected.
That was not as clean as the knife, but damn, that's still very impressive.
This was great. The sword
Oh my
cut the
God.
pineapple perfectly, and I even struggled to tell the difference between the knife cut and the one from the katana. I wasn't expecting this. Alright. Pumpkin.
Pumpkin.
This paper blade is surprising me. I'm starting to believe it will easily slice all the target.
Oh!
That was painful. It really just snapped.
Oh!
But after watching the super slow motion, I know it wasn't the blade's fault. Just mine. When swinging a sword, aligning the edge to the direction of the swing is fundamental to get clean cuts, but it requires skills that I don't have. If you don't do that, a steel sword would just bend a little bit because steel is very tough, but paper and resin, well, they're much less forgiving. You can see in my swing, the edge wasn't aligned at all, and that's why the blade snapped. So I fixed the katana to give it another chance. I basically just remade the tip. I guess now it became a paper machete. And I'm gonna try to slice the pumpkin once again. This time my alignment was a bit better, but still not perfect. But since the blade is shorter and tougher now, it basically came out without a scratch. And so, I'm gonna try again.
No mas. Smooth.
From this footage it gets pretty clear. With a decent alignment, this paper blade doesn't perform bad at all. After that, I quickly tried slicing a plastic bottle, and it didn't work. But it didn't even work with a sharp knife, until I hit the bottle lower, where the water prevented the plastic to bend. So I don't really know how to consider the results for this one. The good news is that the edge of the blade basically didn't get damaged. Now, the last target before the dummy head is ballistic gelatin. This material is very hard to slice with a normal blade, maybe because of the high friction the gelatin creates against smooth materials, and that stands for the paper katana as well. But what if you tried to puncture it instead of slicing it? Well, I tried first with a steel knife, and it kinda worked. I almost lost a few fingers in the process.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
What about the paper knife?
Oh yeah.
And well,
Beautiful.
once again, this worked so much better than expected. Alright then, the final test for this paper blade is a ballistic dummy head. There is a very high chance this blade is gonna snap again, but I really want to see what happens. So far, I'm pretty surprised by these things. Alright.
Alright. Send it. Yeah, it's not doing anything. Oh, my ear!
The sword left a long deep cut into the gelatin, and it even cracked the bone. Also, I was expecting this blade to snap, but it just got chipped. So, what do I think about this thing? I think this is not a sword. Not even close to a steel sword. But for being paper, I would say it's pretty impressive. Right now, I'm working on something definitely more powerful than a paper sword, so subscribe if you want to see that. And also, big thanks to War Thunder for supporting this project. Use the link in the description to receive a massive free bonus pack on PC and consoles. Check it out.
Alright. Well, I mean, hey, at least it cut. I knew that because of rigidity and because of, you know, how hard, like, carbon, like full, like, high carbon steel is versus paper. I mean, either way, this dude built a paper katana and it sliced things in half. Well done. Well done. You did well. Well, anyway, I'm gonna hop off here. I want everyone to know, thank y'all very much for being here. I want to thank everyone who recommends our stuff over on our streams, and also to be sure to check out more from Mike Shake, and also be sure to check out more from us. Leave a like and all that fun stuff. And until next time, I'm Nate. Y'all keep being awesome. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.